What is up everyone, Manolet here, and in this video, I'm going to build this ARMATTAN TADPOLE. First, we're going to set up the frame, and I'm also gonna use the bracket for all-in-one flight controller. I'm also gonna use this 13 amps Flywoo all-in-one flight controller, the Foxeer Razer Nano, TBS Unify Pro 32 Nano, Crossfire Nano receiver with Immortality, and the Betafpv 1103 8000 kV motors for 3S battery. First, I'm gonna go ahead and mount the motors. I'm only going to use 2 screws for each motors. Now all the motors are mounted. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zip tie the Immortality antenna for the receiver at the bottom of the frame. Next, I'm going to solder the camera wires at the flight controller. Red goes to 5V, black goes to ground, and yellow wire goes to video pad or video in or camera pad. Now just be careful soldering the wires. The pads are small and you might breach the solder, so just double check when you're finished soldering. Now for the VTX, the green wire goes to smart audio, the yellow wire goes to video, the black wire goes to ground, and the red wire goes to 5V. Now I'm going to solder the green wire to the TX pad. The yellow wire goes to video out or VID pad. The black wire goes to ground pad, and the red wire goes to 5V. Now for our receiver, I'm going to tin the pads, and I'm going to solder the yellow wire to the RX pad of the receiver. The white wire goes to transmit pad of the receiver, and the red wire goes to 5V, and the black wire goes to ground. Now I'm going to solder the yellow wire to the transmit pad of the flight controller, and the white wire I'm going to solder it to the RX pad of the flight controller. The black wire goes to ground, and the red wire goes to 5V. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the antenna of the receiver and the VTX, and I'm going to use the smoke stopper to power it up to make sure that everything is working and everything is good. Always use smoke stopper because it will save your electronics from smoking and not to waste your money. Everything seems to be working fine. Now let's go ahead and set up the radio controller. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a model, and then I'm gonna scroll up till I see the internal RF, and then I'm gonna turn it off, and turn on the external RF and look for Crossfire. Now I'm going to power up the electronics. I'm going to Crossfire Lua script, and then I'm going to bind the receiver. Now if you don't know how to do it on radio controller, you can always go to TBS Agent X on your computer and then connect your Crossfire module and then click your TX and then bind the receiver from there. It's very easy. Once the binding is complete, it will ask you to update your receiver, and go ahead and update it and wait for it and don't turn it off. Now everything is all set up. I'm going to heat shrink the receiver and the VTX. I have these flight controller dampeners, or the silicone dampeners. I'm going to use it for the flight controller. I'm going to use double-sided tape, and I'm going to put it at the frame underneath the flight controller. Now that the flight controller is mounted, I'm going to secure the VTX antenna at the VTX antenna holder. Next, I'm going to screw the lock nuts at the flight controller. And then I'm going to connect the motor wires. Next, I'm going to connect the camera, and then I'm going to mount it in place. Now I'm going to screw the top plate. I also forgot to mention that I zip tied the motor wires to secure it in place, and then tuck the excess wire at the sides. For the propellers, I'm going to use this HQ 65mm bi-blade props. And the build is done. Let's go ahead and fly it outside.